I paid my fiance's entire medical school tuition working 2 jobs for 4 years. The day after graduation, he left me for the dean's daughter, saying, "A surgeon needs a wife with connections." I smiled, wished him luck, and walked away. Yesterday, he showed up at my office, bankrupt and begging me to save his career. I've never seen a man cry so hard in a $3,000 suit. 4 years of my life, $287,000 in tuition payments, and countless nights falling asleep at my kitchen table between shifts. That's what I invested in Thomas Mitchell's dream of becoming a surgeon. Every time I swiped my credit card for his textbooks or packed him lunch before his 36-hour rotations, I told myself it was an investment in our future. The future where Dr. and Mrs. Mitchell would live in that craftsman-style house we bookmarked on Zillow, with the wraparound porch and space for a home office where I could finally finish my own degree. I can still picture his face the day he got his acceptance letter to Westbrook Medical School. We were at that little coffee shop on Camden Street, the one with the chalkboard menus and mismatched mugs. He'd been checking his email every 30 seconds. When the notification came, his hands shook so badly he couldn't even click on it. I had to do it for him, and when we saw the word "congratulations," we both screamed so loudly the barista dropped a whole carafe of cold brew. "We did it," he kept saying. "We did it," pulling me across the table for a kiss that tasted like caramel, macchiato and promises. That "we" felt so good then. Like we were a team. Like my community college accounting classes and his MCAT scores were all part of the same dream. That night, he proposed with his grandmother's diamond ring, promising we'd upgrade once he was established. I said yes before he even finished asking. 2 weeks later, reality set in. The acceptance letter clearly stated that tuition was due before classes began. $72,000 for the first year alone. Thomas's parents had already remortgaged their house to pay for his undergrad. They had nothing left to give. My parents were never in the picture. Student loans would only cover a fraction of it. So I did what any woman in love would do. I got a second job. Days at Cornerstone Accounting as a payroll specialist, nights waiting tables at Giovanni's Italian Bistro, weekends picking up extra shifts wherever I could. I memorized the Westbrook academic calendar like it was scripture, calculating exactly how many doubles I needed to work before each payment deadline. I became the queen of couponing, the empress of expense tracking. I could tell you the price of every item in my grocery cart down to the penny. Our apartment became a shrine to frugality. Mismatched furniture from Facebook Marketplace, DIY repairs held together with hope and hot glue, date nights that consisted of $5 pizza and free movies from the library. Updated. Wow, I didn't expect this post to blow up overnight. Thank you all for the supportive comments and awards. To answer the most common question, yes, I still have all the receipts and bank statements. I'm not just being petty. My accountant brain couldn't help but document everything. Would you have kept track of every penny too? When Thomas started his first year, I practically vibrated with pride. My fiance, the future doctor. Every time he called me from campus, exhausted but excited about something he'd learned in anatomy lab, I felt this fierce joy that made all the exhaustion worth it. "You're making this possible," he'd tell me on those rare nights when we were both home and awake at the same time. "Once I'm done, it's your turn. I'll support you through whatever you want to do." I believed him completely. Why wouldn't I? This was Thomas, my high school sweetheart, the boy who'd held my hand at my grandmother's funeral, the man who'd driven 4 hours in a snowstorm just to surprise me on my birthday during undergrad. The guy who once wrote me a love letter on a napkin when we were broke college students splitting an appetizer at Applebee's. His ambition had always been one of the things I loved most about him. I never once thought it would consume us both. The red flags started appearing during his second year, small things at first, so easy to rationalize away. He began spending more time with his study group than he did with me. Fair enough, medical school is demanding. He stopped introducing me to his classmates at school functions. I told myself he was just focused. Then he suggested I not attend the annual dean's reception because it's really just for students and faculty. When I reminded him that partners were explicitly invited, he said, "You'd be bored anyway. All we talk about is medicine." I should have known something was wrong when he started caring about designer labels. Thomas, who used to mock people for paying for the privilege of being a walking billboard, suddenly needed polo shirts and Tag Heuer watches. "Appearance matters in medicine," he explained when I questioned a $200 tie. "Patients and colleagues need to see success to trust you." What I didn't know then, what I wouldn't discover until much later, was that he'd met someone during his first semester. Allison Kent, the dean's daughter. A third-year law student with shiny brown hair, family connections that spanned 3 hospital boards, and a trust fund that made my yearly salary look like pocket change. Apparently, they'd been just friends for almost 2 years before becoming something more. All while I was working 80-hour weeks to keep his dream alive. The day after his graduation ceremony, where I sat in the audience with his parents, whooping embarrassingly loud when he walked across the stage. Thomas sat me down at our kitchen table. The same table where I'd fallen asleep so many nights between shifts, drooling on medical textbooks I'd been quizzing him from. "We need to talk," he said, and my heart immediately sank to my feet. 4 years together, and I knew those words never preceded anything good. "I've been offered a surgical residency at Massachusetts General," he said, not quite meeting my eyes. "It's one of the top programs in the country. I'd be insane not to take it." "That's amazing," I remember saying, genuinely thrilled for him. "When do we move? I should give Cornerstone at least 3 weeks' notice, and I'll need to—" "Here's the thing," he interrupted, finally looking at me. There was something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Something cold and calculating. "I'm not taking you with me." The world stopped spinning for a moment. "What?" "I've been doing a lot of thinking about my future. About what I need to succeed in this field." He spoke mechanically, like he was reciting something rehearsed. "A surgeon needs the right kind of partner. Someone with connections, someone who understands this world." "I don't understand," I said, though a terrible clarity was already dawning. "I've supported you through every step of this. And I'm grateful for that," he cut in smoothly. "But let's be realistic. You're a bookkeeper and a waitress. You've never even finished your bachelor's degree. How would you fit into my life in Boston? At hospital fundraisers? At dinner with the chief of surgery?" I remember feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. "So, what are you saying? That I'm not good enough for you now that you've got MD after your name? The name that I paid for?" He had the audacity to look annoyed. "This isn't about the money." "Then what is it about?" He sighed, like I was being deliberately obtuse. "It's about Allison." "Allison," I repeated flatly, "Dean Kent's daughter. We've been close for while now. She understands the life I'm going into because she's grown up in it. Her father's connections already helped me secure this residency. Her family has a summer home 10 minutes from the hospital." "How long?" I managed to ask, my voice barely audible. He at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. "It's complicated." "How long?" "Officially, just a few months. But we've had a connection since first year. While I was working doubles at Giovanni's, coming home with feet so swollen I had to ice them before I could take my shoes off. While I was skipping meals to make sure he had protein bars and energy drinks for his all-night study sessions." "I see," I said, surprised by how calm I sounded when inside I was screaming. "And when were you planning to tell me? After I'd packed our apartment? After I'd given notice at my jobs?" He looked at his watch, the Tag Heuer I'd scrimped and saved to buy him as a graduation present, and had the gall to look impatient. "Look, I know this is a shock, but a surgeon needs a wife with connections, not a waitress who smells like garlic bread." In that moment, something inside me shattered. Not my heart, though that was certainly broken beyond repair, but the illusion that the man I loved had ever existed at all. "Get out," I whispered. "What?" "Get out. Now. This is my apartment too. An apartment I've paid rent on for 4 years while you contributed exactly nothing," I said, my voice deadly quiet. "An apartment that's in my name only because your credit score was too low to be on the lease. So get your things and get out, or I swear to God I will call the police and report you for theft." "Theft? What the hell are you talking about?" I smiled then, a smile that felt foreign on my face. "The last 4 years of my life, Thomas. Now get out." He stared at me for a long moment, then started gathering his things. Most of his belongings were already packed for Boston anyway. As he headed for the door, rolling suitcase in hand, he turned back one last time. "You'll see this was for the best. You and we were never going to last in my world." I didn't cry until I heard his car pull away. Then I sank to the kitchen floor and sobbed until there was nothing left inside me. The next morning, I called in sick to both jobs, went to my bank, and did something I should have done years ago. I opened an account solely in my name and transferred every penny from our joint savings. Legally, I was entitled to it. Morally, I'd earned it with sweat and sacrifice while he'd contributed nothing. Then I called a locksmith and had the locks changed. By noon, Thomas was blowing up my phone with increasingly frantic texts about how I couldn't do this and how he needed that money for the security deposit on his Boston apartment. I blocked his number without replying. That night, as I lay awake in our half-empty apartment, surrounded by the ghosts of a future that would never happen, I made myself a promise. Thomas Mitchell had taken 4 years of my life, but he wouldn't take 1 day more. It was finally my turn. Updated. Thanks for all the support and advice on my last update. Some of you mentioned potential legal issues with the joint account, but don't worry, I consulted an attorney immediately, since I'd Was the only one who ever deposited money into that account, with bank statements to prove it. It's legally mine. Has anyone else discovered that spite is actually a powerful motivator for finally pursuing your own dreams? The next 2 years were a blur of reinvention. I quit Giovanni's, kept my day job at Cornerstone, and used my savings to finally finish my accounting degree. Once I had my bachelor's, I earned my CPA license and started specializing in healthcare financial management. There's a beautiful irony in the fact that all those years of researching medical school tuition payments gave me unique insight into the Byzantine world of healthcare finance. I launched my own consulting firm from my studio apartment, targeting small medical practices struggling with billing systems and revenue management. Turns out doctors are brilliant at medicine, but often terrible at business. My first client was Dr. Reynolds, an obstetrician who'd been kind to me during a health scare in my early 20s. She'd recently left her hospital position to start her own practice and was drowning in administrative chaos. Within 6 months, I'd quadrupled her revenue by implementing proper billing systems and negotiating better rates with insurance companies. She referred me to every doctor she knew. Soon I had to hire 2 assistants just to keep up with demand. By the end of my first year in business, I was making more than I ever had at my 2 previous jobs combined. By the end of the second, I had a downtown office with my name on the door and a team of 6 employees. I didn't follow Thomas on social media, that would have been masochistic, but mutual friends kept me reluctantly updated. He and Allison had a splashy wedding at her parents' estate 6 months after he left me. The photos that circulated showed a beaming couple surrounded by Boston medical royalty. His surgical residency was apparently going well. He was exactly where he'd always wanted to be, with exactly the kind of partner he believed would advance his career. I dated sporadically during those 2 years. Nothing serious. I was too focused on building my business and honestly too traumatized to fully trust anyone. But I was healing, slowly but surely. I bought my own condo. I made new friends. I even took a vacation, my first in 5 years, to a beach resort where I did absolutely nothing productive for an entire week. Then yesterday, my assistant buzzed my office. "There's a Dr. Mitchell here to see you. No appointment." Says, "It's urgent." My heart stuttered in my chest. For a wild moment, I considered hiding under my desk or escaping down the fire stairs. Then I took a deep breath, smoothed my skirt, and told her to send him in. Thomas looked both exactly the same and completely different. Same chiseled jawline, same dark hair now stylishly cut, same blue eyes I used to get lost in. But there were new lines around those eyes. His designer suit couldn't hide the fact that he'd lost weight, and not in a healthy way. He looked haunted. "Hello, Thomas," I said, proud of how steady my voice sounded. "This is a surprise." He stood awkwardly in my doorway, clutching an expensive-looking leather portfolio. "You look good," he said finally. "Really good." "Thank you. What can I do for you today?" He took a hesitant step forward. "Can I sit down?" I gestured to the chair opposite my desk, watching as he sank into it like a man twice his age. "I don't know how to say this," he began, his voice rougher than I remembered. "I need your help." 4 small words that I'd been waiting 2 years to hear, though I hadn't realized it until that moment. 4 words that gave me no satisfaction at all, only a bone-deep weariness. "What kind of help?" He set his portfolio on my desk and opened it with shaking hands. Inside were financial documents, legal notices, newspaper clippings. "I've lost everything," he said simply. "My position at Mass General, my reputation, most of my money, and Allison, she's filing for divorce." I picked up one of the newspaper clippings. The headline read, "Promising Surgeon Faces Malpractice. Suit After Fatal Error." I scanned the article quickly. Thomas had apparently performed an unnecessary procedure on a patient with political connections, resulting in complications that led to death. The subsequent investigation revealed questionable decision-making and possible impairment during surgery. "Were you drinking?" I asked quietly. He flinched. "It was just 1 glass of scotch to steady my nerves before a complex procedure. I'd done it before with no issues. But this time," he trailed off, staring at his hands. "The patient was the governor's brother-in-law. The family is out for blood. The hospital cut me loose immediately to avoid liability. Allison's father pulled his backing. And Allison..." He swallowed hard. "She said she didn't sign up to be married to a disgrace." I felt a twisted sense of déjà vu. Here we were at another table. Thomas explaining why someone wasn't good enough for his world. Only this time, he was the one being found wanting. "I'm sorry for your troubles," I said carefully. "But I don't understand what you think I can do about this." He leaned forward, desperation rolling off him in waves. "Your firm has contacts with every major medical group in this city. You've got influence with hospital administrators who respect your financial expertise. All I need is a chance, a foot in the door somewhere. I'm a good surgeon, despite what happened. One mistake shouldn't end my career." The irony was so thick I could almost taste it. Thomas, who had discarded me because I lacked connections, was now begging me to use my connections to save him. "You left me the day after graduation," I said, my voice calm and detached. "You told me a surgeon needs a wife with connections, not a waitress who smells like garlic bread." Those were your exact words. He had the grace to look ashamed. I was an arrogant fool. Everything I said that day, I've regretted it 1,000 times over. Have you? Or do you just regret that? Your other plan didn't work out? Please, he whispered, and to my shock, his eyes filled with tears. I have nothing left. No job, no references, almost no money. My parents had to remortgage their house again to help me with legal fees. If I can't practice medicine, I don't know what I'll do. This is all I've ever wanted. I stared at the broken man before me, trying to reconcile him with the ambitious, brilliant boy I'd once loved enough to sacrifice everything for. There was a time when I would have given anything to see Thomas like this, humbled, desperate, needing me as much as I had once needed him. But now that it was happening, I felt nothing but a profound sadness. "What exactly are you asking me to do?" I asked finally. "Just make some calls. Put in a good word. Help me get an interview somewhere. Anywhere that will give me another chance." He reached across the desk, his hand stopping just short of touching mine. "I know I don't deserve your help, but I'm begging you." I looked at the tears rolling down his face, at the expensive watch on his wrist. Not the one I'd given him, I noticed, but something even more ostentatious. I thought about all the nights I'd spent working while he studied, all the dreams I'd put on hold for his, and I thought about where I was now, successful on my own terms, respected for my expertise rather than my connections, finally living the life I deserved. "I'll need to think about it," I said finally. "Leave your contact information with my assistant on your way out." Hope flickered across his face. Thank you so much. I promise if you help me with this, I held up a hand, stopping him mid-sentence. "I haven't agreed to anything yet. I'll let you know my decision within the week." He nodded eagerly, gathering his documents and practically backing out of my office with gratitude. As the door closed behind him, I let out a long, slow breath and swiveled my chair to look out at the city skyline. The sun was setting, painting the glass buildings in shades of gold and amber. It was beautiful from up here, from my office with my name on the door. In my pocket, my phone buzzed with a text message from my business partner, Claudia. "Just got a huge donation offer for our healthcare scholarship fund. Donor wants to remain. Anonymous. $250K. This could fund 5 students all the way through med school." I smiled, putting my phone away without responding. There would be time for that later. Right now, I had a decision to make about Thomas Mitchell. Actually, that wasn't quite true. I'd made my decision the moment he walked through my door. I opened my computer and began drafting an email to the CEO of Riverside Community Hospital, a small but respected institution in a rural area 3 hours from the city. I had helped them restructure their finances last year, saving them from possible bankruptcy. They owed me a favor, and they desperately needed doctors willing to serve their under-resourced community. Thomas Mitchell would get his second chance. Not the glittering career at a prestigious hospital that he'd once envisioned, but honest work helping people who needed him. Not because he deserved my help, but because I refused to be the person he was, someone who measured others' worth by their utility. The scholarship fund, though, that was my real victory. $250,000, almost exactly what I'd paid for Thomas's education, would now help future medical students who couldn't afford tuition. Students who, hopefully, would remember their roots once they had MD after their names. Updated, thanks. You for all the kind words. For those asking if I'll maintain contact with Thomas after this, no. I've arranged his interview at Riverside, but our paths won't cross again. The scholarship fund is now officially established with 5 students already selected for next year. In case you're wondering, yes, I'm dating again, and yes, he's wonderful. A kindergarten teacher who thinks my accounting jokes are hilarious. Would you have helped your ex if they came crawling back, or would you have shown them the door?